Hi guys, Mayflum here, and okay, so what I have here, it's a piece of watercolor cardstock, and I had stamped on it and done white embossing, so very thankful for you. And then I was playing around with some watercolor technique, and well, I don't love what happened because it got too thick around the sentiment, and then I didn't want to fill the whole paper. Anyhow, this was destined for the recycle bin when I went, wait a minute, what if I use my ScanNCut and cut around it, create something out of this? So let's see what we can do. The first thing that I am going to do is I'm going to set this on my mat here. And actually, no, we're not going to scan it first. We could scan it in first. The first thing I'm going to do, though, I'm instead going to look at some patterns. I'm going to go through and look at these intricate patterns. Are really nice, but they would completely chop up my words, with the exception maybe the teapot. The teapot would maybe work, but these otherwise would chop up, and I don't want that to happen. So going up here and looking around at the various things that I have, let's take a look. Something like this could possibly work because we could get the sentiment in the middle. So let's give that a try. We're going to set that at, let's set it at 4 inches across. Actually, it'll need to be bigger for sure. So we'll go with 5 inches across. And then once that is set, what I'm going to do is remove my mat here, and I am going to tack this down really well. I'm going to make sure that it's firmly attached. Now, one thing you're going to notice here, and I'm going to change it out, it pops right back up. It's not sticking at all. That's because this is a lower tack mat, and it's also an older mat, which means it's been used a whole lot and it's not as tacky. And watercolor paper is a really heavy paper, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually put it down a few inches and then just firmly press. Now, if you are still having problems, this is a newer mat, don't worry if the very edges are trying to pop up just a little bit, they'll be fine. So the next thing I'm going to do is to load my mat. Watercolor paper is definitely one of the trickier materials. Oh my goodness, this one is really giving me trouble. It's one of the trickier materials, and I'll tell you why. Because it is so thick and so heavy, it doesn't, and unlike mine is kind of warped, so it wants to do its own thing. If you're having a problem like I am, you can do two things. You can get out one of the high tack mats, one of the mats that are super tacky, or your other option is you could use some adhesive at the very edges here to help tack it down. I'm going to try to avoid that. So I'm going to just scan this in and look and see what I even think of my patterns before I worry about trying to tack it down any further. Okay, so focusing on this, check this out. So as I look here, I can see that it's not quite big enough for the sentiment. So let's take a look at this up close. I love being able to zoom way in. And as I zoom way in, I can see my sentiment is in the middle there. So it did work. It does work. It would show up nicely, but I'm going to have to distort this and it's going to go off the edges, so I don't think it's actually going to be a very good choice or look very good. Pushing the home button and going back to start over and find a different pattern that I think will work better. So I paused and I realized I was actually using a low tack. Once I put this on a new standard mat, it's totally fine. It's going to work really, really well. So we can get back to the business of choosing a pattern. Now, one thing I did think about as I was working on this is if we get too intricate and too small on watercolor paper, on normal paper or on a thinner material, I would say absolutely. But the watercolor paper, especially this stuff that I have right now, it is so dense and so pulpy that I think we're going to end up with some tearing and problems. And that's definitely something to consider. You do have to think about, you know, what is your material and what will work well on your material. And this is definitely a case where I think that would be a bad choice. I think I would regret that choice. So instead, here's what I'm looking at. I've got a scalloped oval and I'm just moving it around a little bit. I'm going to say okay, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add some hearts. I think I could get away with adding a couple of teeny tiny hearts. So I'm just going to set this as small as it will go. Really super small, I know. And let's do 4 of them. Okay, now they automatically default to way up there. Don't worry about that. We're just going to drag them down. I'm just going to drag them all down onto here and pay no attention to where they land. Then I'm going to push this button right here. And I'm going to push the magnify button twice so it's 400%. Love this feature. So now what I'm going to do is go around and place them where I really want them. I think this is going to be super cute. And I'm going to say, okay. Then I'm going to go into here. And what I can do here is look at rotating them just a few degrees. Okay, this one, let's put that way. Okay. Let's put this one a little bit as well. And say, okay. And then I'm just going to go back in and take a look and see if I'm happy with it. This one I would like a little more rotated, so let's do that and say okay. And take another look in here. Double checking your work, guys, especially something like this. It really is not that hard and it really adds a lot. That one I'm going to rotate the other way. As you can see though, it's so super easy to make your adjustments. Now once this is done, I'm going to need to put my blade, I'm going to have my blade all the way up at number 8 because I have an older blade that I use just for watercolor paper, because watercolor paper is really hard on blades. As much as I love using it, and especially in my ScanNCut, it is really hard on the blades. So we're going to go in here and say cut and let the ScanNCut do its thing.